Council. As we begin today's meeting, we would like to acknowledge that we are gathering here today on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and before them the traditional territory, the Haudenosaunee, Huron, and Wendat. We also acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and other global Indigenous people that now call Brampton their home. We are honored to live, work, and enjoy this land. I was also saddened to learn of the passing of former Brampton City Councillor Peter Richards this past July 31st. I thought members of the council should be aware of that. Peter Richards served on Brampton City Council for 12 years, over 4 successive terms from 1991 to 2003, representing the residents of the former Ward 8. Peter was known for his great sense of humor and love and dedication for working for the citizens of our city. He was awarded the 1998 Arts Person of the Year for the city. Flags at City Hall have been lowered today in memory of the former City Councillor Peter Richards. May he rest in peace, and condolences to his family. Please all now rise for the singing of our national anthem, to be followed by a moment of personal reflection. Thank you. Welcome to our regular council meeting of August 7th, 2019. All members of council are present today except for Councillor Vicente, who's on a pre-planned family vacation. Members of council, there are a few agenda changes identified on the package in front of you. I will ask the city clerk to review the changes for today's agenda since its publication last Thursday.
Mayor Brown, members of council, members of the public and staff, showing on the screen are the proposed agenda changes for today's meeting. Item 6.1, a briefing report from the Office of the Chief Administrative Officer. That briefing report in the form of slides has been distributed to members of council and published online. In regard to items, we have added delegations for today's agenda. The first is delegation 7.1 from Flash Training regarding item 21.2 on today's agenda, which is a closed session item regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, a property matter. Delegation 7.2 is a delegation and presentation from representatives from Algoma University, and this is in regard to item 9.1 on today's agenda, which is a staff report regarding Algoma University expansion phase 2. And we also have delegation 7.3 from Michael Gagnol from Gagnol Walker Domes on behalf of local area residents, and this is specifically in regard to item 11.1 on today's agenda, and specifically the Planning and Development Committee recommendations from this past July 10th, PDC 113, 2009, and PDC 114, 2019, sorry. As well, I wish to point out for the members, item 21.3 on today's agenda is closed session business regarding a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board as it relates to an infrastructure and transportation matter. Staff have advised that this item should be removed from the agenda as it's no longer required. Staff have resolved the matters, and closed session discussion is not necessary on this item. Those are the changes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Are there any other additions, changes, or deletions to the agenda? I see, actually, my screen on. I see Councillor Medeiros.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to add 2 delegations. regarding item 7.1, item 21.2, Mr. Magar Singh from the International Singers Club, and also Mr. Gurnam Singh from Smiling Seniors Club.
Okay. Councillor Paleshi?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to add a discussion item on ROPA 32 and the future expansion of Northwest Brampton. Can I get an item number?
So through you, Mr. Chair. So first of all, Councillor Medeiros is adding, in regard to Delegation 7.1, it would be 7.1B, 2 delegations, in addition to Mr. Larry Poole, which is listed on the changes. As well, Councillor Paleshi is moving proposed new business item 17.2, ROPA 32, and the future expansion in Northwest Brampton.
Okay. Councillor Fortini?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to see if 11.2, maybe just put in consent, since Councillor Vicenti's not here anyway.
11.2, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
are the minutes from the Brampton Heritage Board, and if it's the will of council to add it to consent, that is something, when we get to the consent motion, that could happen.
Okay. And I have an item, proposed item 21.6, a position plan or procedure, criteria or instruction to be applied for any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, and a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and that's for in camera. Okay. We have a motion by Councillor Willen, seconded by Councillor Bowman, to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Motion carries. Do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter to be considered on today's agenda? Seeing none, the clerk will so note for the meeting minutes. We are now ready to move to the next item of public business on today's council agenda, item 3, minutes. We have the following council minutes before us today. I have a motion from Councillor Paleshi, seconded by Councillor Willens. The minutes of the regular city council meeting of July 10th. All those in favor? Motion carries. Consent motion. The items listed with an asterisk on the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial. The consent motion is to adopt these matters on today's agenda without the need for a separate discussion on the items unless a member requests a separate discussion. We have no items currently listed for the approval through the consent motion. Do any members wish to add an item to the consent motion? I know Councillor Fortini had one. 11.2?
Yeah, no, it's 11.2 is fine on the Brampton Heritage Board.
Okay. Any other items for consent? Okay. All those in favor? Motion carries. Our first announcement is item 5.1. We have 3 proclamations today. The first proclamation is World Day Against Trafficking of Persons. The Zonta International is a global organization of executives and professionals in 67 countries working together to advance the status of women worldwide through their service and advocacy. The Zonta Club of Brampton Caledon, who have been here many times in our council chambers, have provided over 45 years of service and advocacy in the Brampton community. In 2010, the United Nations declared July 30th World Day Against Trafficking of Persons. Trafficking of persons is a vile crime that feeds inequalities, instability, and conflict. Human traffickers profit from people's hopes and despair. They prey on the vulnerable and rob them of their fundamental rights. On this World Day Against Trafficking of Persons, let us come together in the city of Brampton around the key issues of prevention, protection, and prosecution to build a future where this crime cannot exist. I, Mayor Patrick Brown, on behalf of Brampton City Council, proclaim July 30th as World Day Against Trafficking of Persons. And so I don't think I see members of the Zonta Club here, but we will pass this on to them since it was their request for a proclamation. Our next item is Bill Davis Day in Brampton. For those that did not know, it was only a few days ago on July 30th that Bill Davis turned 90 years young and I know he means a great deal to all of us on City Council and to the City of Brampton. So we have a proclamation that was read to Premier Davis to him that evening at a dinner of family celebrating his birthday up at his cottage, and I know he was touched by this proclamation. On July 30th, 2019, the Honourable William Grenville Bill Davis will celebrate his 90th birthday. At the young age of 29, he was first elected to the Ontario Legislature. He represented the former ridings of Peel and North Peel at Queen's Park for 26 consecutive years. He served in Cabinet as the Minister of Education and Minister of University Affairs. Warmly referred to by Bramptonians as Brampton Bill, Mr. Davis is the only Brampton native to have served as Premier of Ontario, a role he held from 1971 to 1985. As Premier, he was pivotal in the creation and implementation of policies and infrastructure still treasured today across Ontario, including the creation of new universities, the college system, the founding of the TV Ontario network, the appointment of the first female cabinet minister as a Minister of Environment in 1971, the appointment of the first Ministry of the Environment as well. Mr. Davis remains active in our community today, and we honor his legacy and celebrate this milestone birthday. I, Mayor Patrick Brown, on behalf of Brampton City Council, proclaim July 30th as Bill Davis Day in the City of Brampton in honor of his 90th birthday. And we will make sure his family gets a copy of that. And we had an emancipation proclamation, but that was read out last night at the Jamaican Independence flag raising, and thank you to Councillor Williams for her organization of that event, along with Trustee Kathy McDonald. And so this one has already been publicly presented. Okay, our next item is Government Relations Matters. Lowell Rubenvaughn, Office of the CEO, is here to provide an overview and respond to any questions from Council. Do any members have questions regarding the information provided by Lowell Rubenvaughn? Yes. Councillor Santos.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. I know that we are going to get confirmation of other dates and times for the delegations with the other ministers. Have we received any confirmations yet at this point?
Through the Mayor, that'll be in the next presentation that I have, and
Okay.
we'll go through the AMO, the 2019 AMO conference in a little bit more detail, which will include some of the delegation meetings that we have been able to confirm to
Okay,
date.
awesome. Thank you. That's my own question.
Okay, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, through Mayor. So I was looking at the autism revisions. Can you just explain to Council and maybe those who may be watching just some of the changes or what they are keeping the same and what it's going to look like for the residents in Brampton, seeing as Roanoke has cut a significant number of their staff?
So I think this is through the Mayor, I think this is a good news story for Ontarians, and especially families who do have children who have autism. It's, we all know that it's a broad range, so I know that all families deal with different levels of autism. So I think that the fact that the province has decided to put a pause on the changes that they were making is a good sign. They have indicated that they are increasing the experts around the table, so the round tables are going to be expanded. They are looking at developing needs-based and a sustainable Ontario autism program with the goal of helping as many children as possible. The services, they're kind of caught given the changes that were made prior to them making the changes, so I know that that is still kind of the process that they, the changes that were made previously. So I know that they put a pause on that, but unfortunately there are some families that are put in through the current system, so there may be some delays with that. The province, their goal is to align and integrate services and supports for school-age children with autism. And what we're really waiting for is the panel to provide their recommendations sometime in September. They say end of summer, but I think it might go into the fall, the start of the school year.
Thank you.
Councillor Pelletier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on that topic, with the layoffs of some employees at Roanoke's Kids, do we know where that sits? Like, there was 300 across the province, I believe. I don't recall how many specifically from Roanoke's, but I do have a number of residents that have reached out to say that the service level of at Roanoke's Kids is gone down. They're waiting months and months now to have their, do we know?
So through the mayor, my colleague, I was off last week, but I know Andre has followed up with Erin Oaks on that specific questions. We had at about 300 employees at Erin Oak, and that's causing a lot of the backlog now. So at this point, we don't know how this changes that. I don't know if the employees are going to be coming back online immediately, or obviously they may have to wait until the province comes out with their full-fledged recommendations. But we are trying to follow up with the leadership in Erin Oaks.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Our next item is government relations matters as well. We've item 6.2, the presentation of the staff titled 2019 Association of Municipalities of Ontario Conference. Do any members have questions regarding this presentation? Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Went through this, the draft you've got here, Lowell. Thank you very much for doing this as you do every year for us. I did ask if there was a possibility of 2 meetings with Mr. Clark, because we will not be able to even touch on illegal second units in the first meeting, because it's got to do with Bill 108. So have we made any progress in arranging any type of secondary meeting with him or someone else?
Through the mayor, we have the one meeting set up for Sunday, August the 18th in the afternoon, so that's going to be our first delegation meeting. Our focus for that one was the regional governance review, as well as the impact of Bill 108. We are formulating our formal response to that, so this will be a really good opportunity to hand deliver our submissions and our issues with that, in particular the financial impact it's going to have on the city. I know that the other issue that's been around for a number of years now has been around the secondary units. So what we are planning on doing is we have reached out to his office to see 15 minutes. We don't have enough time to get through all the issues, but we will have a note that is ready, and again, if time permits, hopefully we can use that opportunity to once again raise our concerns with right of entry and illegal secondary units.
And I would note, Councillor Bowman, I did speak a few days ago to Minister Clark on the phone. He said he has received obviously delegation requests from every township and city visiting, so he's only able to attend to about 30% of the delegations, but he said that we're one of the delegations that he is making time for. But I think if it was to be a second meeting with him, maybe that's better to ask for a meeting at Queen's Park or in Brampton. But he did say we're on his list of meetings, and that there's many delegations that aren't even getting that.
Okay.
And I would also add to that is usually the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing is kind of like the director for this, so he will be around throughout the conference, so there may be touch points before his speech, after his speech, so we will do our best to seek out other opportunities that may be aligned, and then obviously absolutely try to seek opportunities specifically outside of the conference.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get a chance. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll do everything in our power to do that.
Not in the meeting.
Just a couple quick notes. I won't necessarily go through the deck because it has been there and was circulated with the agenda, but in terms of the delegations, we have a pretty healthy contingent of Brampton councillors going, so thank you very much. We will do our best to provide you with as much support as we can throughout the conference, attending any sessions you want to, as well as during the actual delegation meetings. We wanted to use this time just to, if you haven't already done so, the conference kind of changes depending on speakers and timing. So if you haven't already done so, I strongly encourage you to download the AMO app. That will give you the most up-to-date information. Keep that on, as well as what we're going to be doing beginning the end of this week is to circulate meeting invites to all the delegations that we have confirmed, and I'll get to the ones that we have confirmed in the next little while. And plus, I know for regional councillors, you will also probably be participating on a number of the regional delegations, so we will do our best to mirror those up and ensure that those who can participate in whichever meeting is appropriate gets to get to those on time. Where to be, this is just, most of the conference is going to happen at the Shaw Centre, which is attached to the Westin, so that's where a lot of the plenary sessions, the political speeches will happen, the minister forums will happen, and a lot of the minister delegations. Minister delegations not in the Shaw Centre will more than likely happen at the Westin Hotel as well. And Andre and myself will be there throughout the entire conference to provide the level of support, and especially on some of the logistics. Getting into this year, there's been so much change from autism to a number of various things. The two that we're really going into with a sharp focus on is Bill 108, because that really does have a financial and planning implications for the city, the regional governance review, as well as, it's not on here, but it's also the fair deal for Brampton. So we really need to ensure that we are highlighting the healthcare needs within the city throughout this conference. Councillor Santos, you asked about the confirmed meeting. So we're actually a little bit ahead of the game. They don't guarantee meeting confirmations generally until about a week before. So we started to get these coming in late last week. So I can say that we have confirmed with the Minister of Infrastructure, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, as well as the Solicitor General. We do have the meeting dates there. I was told this morning that we're late last night from the Minister of Health that we were not successful in getting a meeting with Minister Elliott. However, we are following up with her office to ensure that we get something. If it's not during the conference, then again, this is another important one that we need to have outside of the conference. And we've also inquired if we can at least meet with the parliamentary assistant. So if the PA is attending, we'd really like to have an opportunity. Since I've been here, this is, I think, my third AMO, and this is the third time we have not been able to have a meeting with the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care. So we're going to really try our best to push as much as possible. Earlier, I think yesterday, Andre also connected with the with the other ministries. We're expecting something by the end of this week. Ministry of Transportation has confirmed that they'll get back to us at the end of this week. And we have made some success on meeting with the party leaders. We have the NDP as well as the Liberal Party, and we're still working with Mike Schreiner's office to secure a meeting with them during the conference. So we're hoping to be able to confirm all these meetings by early next week, and we'll start populating your calendars as soon as possible. I'm not going to go through the rest of the presentation. These just really talk about the ministries that we have made recommendations to see. Hopefully we'll be able to get 2 or 3 more, which really is a full conference, especially as you're running around, and we have to couple that with a lot of the regional delegations as well. Economic development, we're really going to be focusing on a lot of the things that we're doing here really touches on economic development, job growth, economic development activities, so we're going to highlight a lot of those to hopefully the Minister of Finance. Environment, conservation, and park, this is really an opportunity for us to take that, now that Council has declared an environment emergency, this is an opportunity to share what we're doing through our environmental master plan, our community energy and reduction plans, a lot of the innovative things that we're doing right here in Brampton, as well as, once again, never lose an opportunity to discuss Riverwalk and the opportunity to resolve the flood risk in downtown Brampton. With Minister Phillips, we want to just really quickly address Bill 108, the gas tax funding. We are understanding that at some point in time the province will review the gas tax model. So that's something that we want to ask the minister on, is what is his plan and what is his rollout of that review. And then also this is going to hopefully be coupled with what the Region Appeal is doing. They've done a really good set of analysis in terms of their cuts from public health to policing, long-term care. So this will be an opportunity for us to demonstrate a holistic overview of the funding cuts that are coming through the province. Healthcare, again, this is really an opportunity for us to, hopefully we do have a chance to chat with her at some point, but if not afterwards, this is really a fair deal for Brampton and ensure that we get our message across that we need a lot of attention here in Brampton. With the Minister of Infrastructure, this is a really interesting one, especially now that the province has opened up the public transit stream intake. And working with Brampton Transit, they have already identified and working towards the application process to the projects that will fit under this program, and we are working towards providing them with that. Here is our list, here are the projects that we expect the province to move up to the federal government for approval, and these are our significant infrastructure asks. Municipal Affairs and Housing, Regional Government Review, Bill 108, and we will also slide in there the secondary units as well. Solicitor General Jones, this is really about community safety. This really focuses on the work we're doing with the Peel Regional Police on our well-being plan. This really focuses on, the root causes of some of the crime and violence in our community, focusing on some of the financial inequalities, and we are working quite collaboratively with the region to identify what those are and what kind of supports are required in our city. Training colleges and university. This again is an opportunity to not only demonstrate the work that we're doing for our Center for Innovation, but also an opportunity to highlight our great working partnerships with Algoma University, Sheridan, and Ryerson. So I think we have a lot of interesting things happening right here in Brampton as it relates to universities, and this is really our opportunity to bundle those all together to show the minister what we're doing. Transportation, two-way all-day go is very much under the minister's purview, and also we continue to work with the region of Poole on the GTA West corridor. It's great that the province has announced that they're starting and launching the EA again, but we really want to work in lockstep with the region to ensure that they get moving and that our studies and the work that we have provided to them are somehow involved or somehow get coupled into their final report. We're talking to the leaders. Again, we'll do what we've normally done in the past. They're going to get an overview of all our issues that we're presenting. But given that we really only have 50 minutes, well, 30 minutes, so it's a little bit longer than I had anticipated, with the leaders, we're going to hopefully focus on the transit investment. So this is, the Main Street LRT, the Queen Street LRT, that we need our fair share funding on that, and then also raise to them the fair funding that we need for health as well. And then this is opportunity for other options as time permits. And then in terms of our next steps as staff, we're going to confirm our delegations. Any comments and questions to the materials that we presented today? Andre presented you with the draft kind of packages of the more wholesome information that we're still refining and tweaking. If you have a chance, it would be great to get any comments back by the end of this week, so then we have a few days to kind of work with it and modify it as needed. We're going to continue to coordinate with the region of Poole. What we have done in the past is we provided all of our delegates with a pretty comprehensive binder of where to go, the briefing notes, bios, et cetera, just to make sure that you have time to review it, make up your speaking points, any questions we can help to devise as we head closer. And then we will be planning a final briefing in Ottawa for this delegation, probably after our first meeting with Minister of Municipal Affairs. So sometime we'll find a location on Sunday evening just to go over any last questions, anything that you may need for that. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, comments.
Councillor Pleshy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Lowell. Attending EMOs with you in the past, you guys always make sure that we're well briefed and we're taken care of, because it's hard to track down and get politicians organized when we're away from the chambers. So thank you for that. I'd like to, I don't know, we've had a meeting at the region on what we're planning, but we don't fully know where we're going to be and who we're meeting with as of yet. That being said, I would like to be a part of the delegation for municipal affairs and housing, and I'd also like to lead once again the delegation for transportation, if we get that.
So thank you. So what we have done on each of these slides, now again, these are just suggested delegations. We have a fairly large delegate who's participating. So we have you as a lead on the transportation. We can also include you for the municipal affairs and housing. These are 15-minute meetings, so we tried to limit, hi, how are you, to 30 seconds or less, and then just really get into here's the issues, here's what it is. So again, 1 to 2 speakers in our experience works the best.
For sure.
But absolutely, my anticipation is all councillors are invited to participate in all of the meetings. It's just in terms of the speaking roles we may want to kind of tweak as we lead up to the day of.
Okay, so I didn't, I guess with all councillors being, how many councillors do we have going?
We have 9.
So that's a lot of councillors to be at a delegation. I don't think I've ever sat in a delegation with 9 councillors before. Usually it's 2 or 3. So that's kind of what I thought that the list of delegates were kind of those 3 that were going to be attending. I don't need a speaking role in the municipal affairs. I'd like to be there for support and also with a little bit of background that I have. But the transportation one, I'd very much like to
Through the mayor, we try to limit the role of the delegation, but also as staff, we won't necessarily say no. What typically happens is once we get more delegations confirmed, and then once you also overlap with the region, there could be two that are overlapping anyway, so it tends to sort it out. So yeah, and especially if we have like 9 councillors participating, then by the time you get through the introduction, then you have 30 seconds left. So
Absolutely.
so this is just kind of like a staff subtle nudge to keep them, but again, we are, there's a lot of expertise around this table and everybody provides something to the conversation, so I didn't want to limit that, but I also wanted to at least do a first cut as who can speak, who can provide some of those commentaries.
So typically we have one speaker at a delegation, and then and if there's time left over, if there are any, the delegate asks members of council if they have any additional questions or points they want to make. So I'm in my mind, that's how we're continuing with this delegation as well.
Mayor, we usually had 1 to 2 speakers, just depending on the number of issues. One person may, one delegate may be comfortable on one issue, one may be on the other one. So again, these are free flowing, but just want to provide a little bit of structure and context. So these people who are speaking at any given meeting are prepared to speak to that. Okay. And then whoever is able to attend participates.
And so just on health, do we know if the minister's going to be there?
Our understanding is yes, the minister is scheduled to be there. She is taking delegations. Similar to municipal affairs, she's probably gotten a lot of delegates, so they probably had to make difficult decisions. We are just following up this afternoon with the region to see if they have got a delegation with the Minister of Health, because if they do, this is also another one of our RNs to raise our issues, specific issues during that delegation meeting as well. So,
and from what you stated before, and I know I don't remember ever meeting with the Minister of Health. We've requested it in the last 3 years, and they've turned us down 3 years in a row.
Through the mayor, my 3 requests have not gone through.
So maybe I'd like to ask the mayor that you put together maybe a strongly worded email to the minister, just highlighting the fact that we've been turned down 3 years in a row. We're probably the one municipality in Canada that needs to meet with the Minister of Health with an emergency that's Brampton Civic Emergency being the busiest in Canada, and the crisis that we're in with the fair deal for Brampton. Maybe we request that they reconsider that. It's through the mayor to the mayor.
To Councillor Paleshi, first of all, I would say I don't think we want to, it's not my plan for us to limit the delegation meetings to 2 or 3 councillors. As someone who's taken 4 years of delegations, a larger delegation shows unity, and frankly, I remember taking those delegations when the Wardens Caucus would come in with 20 wardens, it was more intimidating than a municipality that came in with 2 people. Frankly, we felt they didn't take it as seriously. And so I hope that everyone, all 9 councillors that will be in Ottawa for AMO, will join us for the delegation meetings, and we can strategically make sure that maybe we don't have 9 speakers, that we have 2 speakers at these delegation meetings. In terms of Christine Elliott, I'll send her a message. I know she's had a health issue more recently of her own, but I'll obviously highlight that this conversation is long overdue.
You kind of just jarred something, and I recall sitting across the table, delegating to you in the past. Maybe is there an opportunity where you can speak a little bit about, how those ministers are feeling? We had a former mayor that gave us a little bit of insight into how she was feeling across from that table, and also opportunities of saying yes. And I think she even stated that she brought her checkbook and actually wrote checks at a delegation. Do you have any comments to maybe or it could be maybe a future meeting of when we get to AMO or anything like that?
So I would say the province-wide themes are going to hear from everyone. you want to be specific local. And so there are things that we're upset about. Obviously, Bill 108 we're upset about, but they're going to hear that from everyone. And so let's not eat up as much. I think we should state our position that we don't want special allowances being made for developers at the expense of our residents. But at the same point, get to the meat of our ask as quickly as possible. As Lowell said, the longer the chitter chatter is at the beginning, the less time they have to be accountable for our specific asks. And so I think it's a wise strategy to get the meeting going as quickly as possible. They're doing these delegations 15-minute or 20-minute meetings, and they're doing it all day long. And so they're tired, and so just take advantage of the time we have by getting right to business as quickly as possible. Would be my perspective.
And through the mayor, I think you're right on. So what we've done, and once we wrap up this note, we're also planning to send this to the minister's office, so they will be fairly well briefed. Generally, ministers come in understanding the issues they'll have. Over the years doing these, they actually bring in a lot of the officials to come in, so there's kind of like counterparts to counterparts, so it becomes more productive. So through some of our asks, we have like very specific questions that we probably want to ask to the minister. And as Mayor Brown mentioned, like those are the ones that we want to hit up hard, you know, especially like if it's Bill 108, it's what is the rates, how is it going to be flexible so it doesn't affect large growing communities like Brampton as much as other communities. So we want to be as punchy as possible up front.
Okay, Councillor Medeiros.
Thank you. Before I go to my question, not to deflate either any aspiration or hope for my colleagues, but having been on the other side and preparing minister responses, many of the strategies and suggested responses are already established weeks and months on ahead, and everything is managed, and it's just a real time for schmooze, but the strategy and responses are already pre-prepared. So anyways, with that said, regarding local coordination, so in these meetings, the local MPPs, are they also invited, and specifically the ones that belong to, we have an associate minister here in Brampton, will you be sharing our schedule with them to see if they want to pop in as well?
Yeah, through the mayor, we've already reached out to all of our MPPs, letting them know that we are going. Okay. Once we start to have everything finalized within next week, our anticipation would be to send them, here's our full schedule, here is our briefing package, here's all the materials that we've already sent to all the various ministers. And we've also asked them to help encourage their minister, their counterparts, to help us get some of these meetings as well. So absolutely, it's a great suggestion. We will do that.
Thank you.
And I would note our Praveen Security, our local minister, did reach out to my office and said that if we have problems scheduling any meetings, that his office would help try to confirm them. So they are trying to be helpful. And I think the first ask will, and so to Lowell, maybe we can flag with them any of the ones that we haven't got confirmed yet, like the Minister of Health one,
yep.
so that they can assist.
We'll do that right after this meeting.
Okay. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Will you be organizing just at least the delegation speakers meetings with all of us at council who have been shared interest in the areas they want to speak on?
Through the mayor, from our perspective, all councillors will receive the exact same package with all the same information. So, because at the end of the day, we don't know schedules. Mm-hmm. We don't know if there's going to be 2 or 3 meetings. Like, they can happen side by side. We've had them when they happen at the exact same time. So you thought you were going to one meeting, but you had to go to another meeting. Mm-hmm. And it's really important from our perspective that any one of our councillors should be able to speak to any of these issues to any minister at any given time. Because again, you might be networking somewhere else, mm-hmm. and you may get caught at another meeting, whereas somebody else who wasn't expected to speak ends up speaking, just because we have to start these meetings on time and staff gets these on time. So everybody receives, even the councillors who are not going will get the full delegation briefing. All this will be put up on our website and shared as we go along. So.
Okay, and how soon will we be getting that package?
The full package, depending on the comments, again, it's really important for us to get that back by the end of this week. We're looking at next Tuesday, Wednesday for a full briefing. And once I receive it, I haven't seen them yet, but I'll also try to include, for those who are not on regional council, I'll also try to incorporate the regional notes as well, because especially on like the funding and some of the funding cuts, they've done a really good analysis on that. So I want to make sure that all our councillors have that information.
Thank you.
Councillor Santos?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I've read some of the key highlights in here. And one of the things that happened yesterday, MP Ruby Sahota tweeted that money from the federal government, which is being dispersed through the provincial government, is being held back for Brampton, but now being released to various other municipalities. So I think when we get to the point in our delegation meetings, it would be great to get from all the various departments what pools of money we're currently waiting for the provincial government to release, specifically to Brampton, and a pointed question on when we're going to get it. That way, because then we could publicly report whether or not we are or not, and have a better idea for our own budgeting planning purposes as to whether or not that's coming, and also hold them to account. The feds are obviously using that as a tool to put pressure on the provincial government to release money to Brampton, so we might as well ask those pointed questions in those delegation meetings as well.
Through the mayor, that's a really good point. When we first drafted the point, we actually had public transit stream as one of the key ones, but they have since opened that. It's great that we have a meeting with Minister of Infrastructure, because we do want to ask that question around the green infrastructure stream, as well as the community culture and rec center, because that's specifically the funding we're looking for. And with the Solicitor General, there was also funding that was given from the federal government to the province that has been gone somewhere. So this again would be those specific questions as we talk about community safety and well-being. It's how do we start to access those from a City of Brampton perspective?
And if there's a way for us to add the additional pressure and say, well, you gave it to Burlington, like you're releasing money to Burlington, why aren't you giving it to Brampton? And then we could publicly report as part of a report back in September what some of those responses were from the provincial government. In the heat of a federal election, of course. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Willens.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just quickly, thank you, Lowell, for putting this together. You always do a great job of getting us prepared and tracking us down somehow in Ottawa. But when we get the packages, will there be an opportunity, I know it's going to be a short time frame, but will there be an opportunity for us to sit down with either yourself or Andre to talk about the presentations, the delegations? Because I found that last year it was sort of repetitive, is more of scripted. Would it be the opportunity for us to sort of look at it, put it in our own words, run it by you guys first to make sure that we're covering everything all right? But I just found that last year it was just scripted, and I think they get tired of hearing the scripted thing. Councilman Madero's made a good point. They're sort of coming there with their set answers, but if we can sort of catch them off guard by not being so scripted, we might be able to maybe open their eyes and open their ears a little bit more. So.
Through the mayor, first, just really want to really say an extended thank you to Andre and Stratcom and the entire team from all the departments, and they're all represented from commissioners around this table. They really put a lot of work and emphasis on this, and you're really delivering a lot of the hard work that they've been working on for so long. So thank you, and just really want to extend my appreciation for the staff that really pulls this together. To your specific question, absolutely. We have done different things over the years. Some councillors love to be scripted word for word. My preference would be the information is there. It should be easy enough to digest to make it your own. If there's anything specific, or if there's a particular program or report that you just don't know about, we can definitely flush those in. So happy to sit down. We can make maybe 10, 15 minutes, because you'll have the electronic copy. Once you have the hard copy, we can spend 10, 15 minutes on fleshing out your key questions, your comments, whatever. But our preference would be not to script it, just because it doesn't come across as natural. And all the councillors here are very good at articulating all these issues. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lowell. So we have two motions. 6.1, Councillor Fleschy, Councillor Bowman, moved and seconded, and that's for the Government Relations report. All those in favor? Motion carries. 6.2, also by Councillor Willens and Councillor Bowman, and this is for the AMO report from the Office of the CEO. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay, moving on. Our next item is added delegation 7.1 from Larry Poole, flash training regarding a closed session item 21.2, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board and property matter. After receiving the delegation, council will consider the matter in its normal order during the agenda during the closed session. And I understand that the delegations from Madgar Singh and Goran Singh will also be on this topic. And I'm just going to remind council, this is not to debate the item. We'll do that in closed. But if there's clarification required from the presentation, then please do so. But this is not an opportunity for debate. So the first delegation, Larry Poole from Flash Training.
Thank you for giving me the time to speak. My name is Larry Poole. I've been a resident of Brampton since 1965. I've played all my minor hockey in Brampton at all levels. I started coaching at Brampton when I finished my schooling in 1990. I'm married with 3 kids. 2 have now finished their schooling in Brampton, and 1 is currently at Sandalwood High School in the special needs program. I've coached hockey for 24 seasons in Brampton at all levels. My biggest highlight is winning the OMHA gold medal in Novice AAA in 2006. And we are still the last AAA team in Brampton to have accomplished that. I've also run the Brampton Hockey School for 5 years during my time off coaching. I have been blessed with some good fortune in the private business sector to finally allow me to have the funds to open up my own business called Flash Training Center. It's at 250 Clarence Street in Brampton right now. I've been in business for 5 years now. We cater to every athlete. We have pro CFL football players, OHL players, NCAA athletes, girls and boys minor soccer, girls and boys minor hockey, girls and boys minor baseball, volleyball, basketball, and even some mom classes. I'm here in the evening, or I'm here this morning to discuss my current business in the empty space on the 2nd floor at South Fletcher's. As most of you are aware, the space has been empty for many years now. It is my belief I can provide a fair rental payment for this space, which in turn will drive additional revenues to the city of Brampton through the increased ice rentals on 4 of the rink pads. I'm willing to sign a long-term lease, 10 years, to show my commitment. I'm here because I really cannot negotiate a workable rental rate for this space at this time. So some points I'd like you to consider. The space has been empty for obviously about 5 years and going. The city has tried to lease it, and that's when I stepped in. This space is on the 2nd floor of a building with little, if any, foot traffic. My business is supported by the minor hockey leagues. In fact, Glenn McIntyre was to be here, but he's dealing with something at Fletcher's as we speak with regards to the hockey school program and adding the boards, allowing the facility to put the boards in. He did give me a letter that I can pass on to you guys. Both associations, the Canadettes and Brampton Hockey, have expressed interest in holding all their on-ice training at South Fletcher's if the off-ice is there, so they don't have to go to two buildings at once. I do hold free training sessions for schools with their special needs program. This is my way of giving back to the community. My son, who is special needs, his program was changed at Sandalwood High School, where Tullamore used to run the programs. Tullamore has since passed it on to the school boards. And when the school boards got the special needs programs, they were overwhelmed and there was no gym classes for them. As a father of a special needs child, I thought that it was important that they have a gym class. So I brought them into my place and allowed them to do it. Word got out, and other schools have reached out to me, and I've given back. I've been approached also by a lot of other hockey peoples with what we call HP programs, so high performance programs, where the kids come to the ice at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. They go upstairs. They would go upstairs, do their training, and then they start school at 11 o'clock, condensing their day into a 4-hour day at school. A lot of the schools are starting to buy into this, and both boys and girls are doing that. So this in turn would allow me to get non-prime ice rented through Fletcher's if I have this program there. So again, everybody wins. we talk about parents driving their kids to a practice for a 1-hour practice. The parents will sit there and wait. But if they're to do a practice and then an offline, a dry land training session, you're there at the facility for 2 hours, which then they could go in the pool. There's another a gym that the kids or that the parents would go to, and they could work out and spend more money in the facility. Again, generating more revenue. Most cities right now, they do have a high performance training center at one of these facilities. In fact, the Don Cherry's in the old Orangeville rink is now a sports training facility. The bars are kind of leaving most of these facilities, and this is what they're going into. So I'm willing to get in there as quick as possible. I know we've discussed as of March of 2020 when the construction will be done. I also I know the availability or the available rent space is about 5,200 square feet, and that includes some common area. I've been given a rate at $24.50 a square foot, which is quite high for that that amount, which is over $11,000 a month. Some of that space upstairs has been chopped. It used to be 7,900 square feet. I'm willing to take what's left over right now and build from there. I want to work with you guys, and like I said, I'm committed for a long-term lease. My understanding is I'm still going to have to invest monies into it, as the city, if they were to hand it over, would give me what they call a vanilla box. So flooring would be quite expensive, and again, I'm willing to do all that.
Okay, I see that we've exhausted our time.
Sorry.
Is there...
That's it.
Okay, great, okay. Thank you. Any questions of clarification? Okay. Remember, this is not, no debate, this is just questions of clarification.
To staff?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe if there's questions of staff, those should be reserved for closed session. These are questions of clarification of the delegation only. There is a closed session matter on this, and council shouldn't be debating this in public at this point in time.
My question is how did it get here without going to committee? It should have gone, usually we send it back to the staff for a report. So that's where I'm a little bit confused.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is an item on the agenda, 21.2, that relates to this matter, for which the delegation has been requested.
So I'll wait for in camera then.
Okay. Councillor Palashi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Larry, for coming.
Thank you.
I have a brother-in-law that's in Brampton minor hockey, and he has 3 kids that are going through Brampton minor hockey, and he loves to call me and complain about all the issues that are happening at Brampton minor hockey. And I guess the one was the dryland training that they had implemented many years ago now. There was only one location, and I tell you, if they had dryland training when I was playing hockey, I'd be in the NHL for sure.
Not from what I saw.
I guess my question, though, is what's the competition like out there? Is there still just the one?
They have varsity right now,
Yes.
which is now a facility of maybe 20 by 20. They're getting out of that dryland business, so we're the only
Game in town.
yeah, for team training. Individual training is always out there, but it's expensive. To hire a personal trainer is $90 an hour.
But
So
at varsity, I believe, it was if you were playing on a team at Brampton minor hockey, you had to go to
yes,
dryland training.
yes.
And is that still the case?
It's not because of where we are. So we're trying to make it part of the budget, but people are having issues with the driving from one location to another location. Brampton driving is not the easiest, as you know, and it's all prime time hours. So, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening to get from my place to a rink is extremely hard.
For
So
sure.
We're just trying to make them go upstairs. It makes it so much easier. The girls are mandated right now because they do practice out of Century Gardens, which is right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So all the girls rep teams are now at flash training on Monday night. So my whole building is filled with Brampton Minor Girls Hockey Association.
Okay.
So
So, and as a this is private sector. You've obviously done your business case, and there's a need, you feel that there is a need for this in Brampton.
Yes.
And that's why you're here today.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Medeiros.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. So just regarding this location, so
Yes.
I guess the concluding comments were in Brampton. Is there something special about South Fletcher's in relation to the other arenas?
The 4 pads. We have 2 great viewing pads, and we have 2 great practice pads. Let's be honest. Nobody wants to watch any games on rinks 3 and 4. So why not fill them up with practice ice? Again, when they practice, they love to go do their workout, or they do their workout and then they practice. So that's the 4 pads is obviously what we're looking for.
And through Mr. Mayor, thank you. Do you train for any other sports, or is it specific?
Yeah, like I said, I have some CFL pro athletes right now. I've got a lot of baseball team, Brampton minor baseball teams, which I don't plan on losing as well. I have the girls, Brampton United Soccer Association is going to be starting full-time this October. They did a test run last year for about 10 weeks, loved it, and they put it into their budget where they want my facility on a Wednesday night.
Excellent. And just lastly, through the mayor, how many people do you employ? So how many people would be employed with this group?
Probably 5.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, seeing no other questions. Our next delegation is Magyar Singh from the International Seniors Group.
Sir, allotment of a room in the South Fletcher Sports Complex. Indian International Club has honored to request you that the Indian International Club Brampton is occupying this room in Sportsplex Library Building from 2002. The club has been paying the rent for this room, and still it is paying by sitting over there. The club is doing community activities side by side. The club is playing a very important role for the community's activity. So the club requests your honor that being the long-term occupant of this room is become our first right to have this room. Thank you. And
Councillor Medeiros.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, for coming. I know it was a short notice. Just a question. Oh, Mr. Singh?
Question.
Can you, just for council's benefit, can you tell me how many members do you have?
About 86 members at this time in the Indian Interclass.
And how many times do you meet at South Fletcher's during the year?
Since 2002, about 2, we have to occupy this room.
So, and also through you, Mr. Mayor, this summer, I know for the last several years, your club has always requested space during the summer hours. And I know that's always been a problem because we bring in our camps and then your clubs basically don't have any opportunity to meet. This year we were fortunate in a collaboration with Sheridan to get you some space. Can you tell me how important it is for the seniors to come and meet together and why would you want community space?
We want to settle this community members. They are seniors. Sometimes seniors are isolations and they have to request to their activities and depression and tension to meet there, including them. This is our main objective of this, to attention.
Thank you very much.
Our next delegation is Gulran Singh from the Smiling Seniors Club. Gulran?
Good morning, sirs. I am Gurnam Singh, President of Brampton Seniors Smiling Club. our club has been established about 8 years back, and it is running very nicely. We have more than 100 members of the club, and that includes 40 ladies. And this club is extremely doing for the welfare of the society. And so far, we have held many functions for the benefit of the society, and we try to instill the pride and to enforce the public to work for the benefit of the society. And our club is accommodated temporarily in the gymnasium presently, and the facility is withdrawn from July to October, end of September, 1st October. So we don't have any place to sit or get together at that period. So we demand forcefully to allot a facility to our club in the newly constructed area of that building.
Councillor Medeiros, question of clarification?
Thank you for also coming out, and I see it's very passionate to see both clubs here united together, asking for community space. So the previous delegation talked about how important it was for the seniors to come out, and one thing about your club, you also have females. You also have women that come, and I see what they do. Can you just talk about how important it is to your club to have that community space, and maybe some of the difficulties that you have during the summer where you guys can't meet?
Actually, I couldn't hear you. I'm a bit hard of hearing.
Yeah, my apologies. If you can just talk to me about the importance it means to your club. So we heard the previous delegation. Can you tell me why is it important for you to have a community space to meet together, and especially because your club also has females as well?
So if we are accommodated in a permanent facility in that building, we can function more effectively and produce more results for the benefit of the society.
Yeah, and I know that, and I thank you very much, and I know that both clubs, that the activities are social in nature, but you also do a lot of community functions, community events, which impact the whole area. And I know that's been very passionate of you. So I thank both clubs for coming out today. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Singh.
I just wanted to also acknowledge the clubs. I know they're vibrant clubs. I've, even though they're not in our area, I know many of these members personally, and I admire the fact that I saw many of them at 8:30 in the morning getting ready to delegate, and just to have them part of the democratic process is very encouraging. And trying to delegate in a language that's secondary to them, I think is commendable. So thank you for coming out. I appreciate it.
Okay, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for, hi. Sorry, no, I've got a question for you. I'm just wondering what, thank you all for coming, by the way, on a Wednesday morning. What type of amenities do you need in the facility that you use? Is it just basically a gym with tables? Is that what you're looking for?
Actually, we try to increase the members of the sense of pride and active involvement of the club activities.
Yeah.
Secondly, we inspire the residents to become more socially responsible and actively involved in their community development.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, when you meet, do you need tables and chairs set up? Is that what you're looking for? So like the auditorium that you're currently using, you just have that set up with tables and chairs. There's nothing special about it that you need in those rooms, is there?
Our requirement is very normal. The facility for the about 100
Please.
Members, and that is easily can be accommodated in the new building.
Okay, I think our curate Councillor Singh is going to help out.
ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਲੋੜ ਆ ਚੇਅਰਾਂ ਦਾ ਵਾਸ਼ਰੂਮ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਇਹ ਉਹ ਸਵਾਲ ਪੁੱਛ ਰਹੇ
Yeah, we got ladies members also, about 40 ladies, and we need the washroom and other facilities also there in the club.
Okay. So it's a pretty basic setup is what you need then. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we finished the delegations. With a motion to receive the delegation from Larry Poole, Meghar Singh, and Golran Singh. Moved by Councillor Pleshy, second by Councillor Willens. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay. And we'll deal with that item in close later. Our next delegation is from Algoma University, and we have Asma Vesna, President and Vice Chancellor, Brent Kermatic, Director of Enrollment Management International Operations, Susan Hackett, Economic Modeling Consultant from EMSI, and Jorge Garcia, Architect from the IBI Group. We're just going to take 2 minutes so that those that need to leave have the opportunity to leave, and then we'll have this presentation.
So we're advancing the slides if not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just do a check.
Standing okay or? Standing
What? Pat, now is a motion to add a new rec center to Charmaine and Pat's wards.
Interesting. Council meetings. Find out what's going on in the city.
Yeah, no, through the last one too, it was amazing.
Yeah.
No.
Very removed right here. This is a little bit, you don't have to worry so much about your voice will carry and stuff. It's very good.
Oh, second committee law.
Personal.
Want to see where Pleshy and Bowman. Bowman, you're here. I don't want to start this without Pleshy or Bowman. This is an important delegation.
Yeah. See what I mean?
Yeah, I think we just did. So, yeah, it's good.
Okay, thank you, City Council. Okay, thank you, members of council. We have everyone back, almost everyone back in the room. So thank you to Algoma University for this presentation. I know we're all looking forward to it.
Great, thank you.
I understand that there'll need to be an adjustment on the time allocated. It's about a 20-minute presentation?
Correct.
Okay. So the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Brown, and thank you to the city councillors for the opportunity to be here this morning to present what we're calling phase 2 of our expansion, and looking for partnership and collaboration as we move forward. So I'll just take a quick minute to introduce you to our team. So my name's Ozma Vesna. I'm the President and Vice Chancellor of the University. To my left here I have Susan Ackett, who is representing EMSI and was responsible for the economic impact study that we did on Brampton, particularly with this phase 2 expansion. To my left, from IBI, lead architect on this project, Jorge Garcia. And then in the audience here we have Colin Wilson, who's been the project lead on the project and preparing the business case that's before you today. He's the Director of Strategic Advancement, and beside him, do you want to just give a wave? Rob Battisti. Robert is the Vice President of Finance and Operations for the university. Joel Muldoon will be joining our team in the fall to provide some leadership support right here on the Brampton campus. And then we've got Brian Leahy, Communications Director. And last but not least, Brent Krmpodic, who is Director of International Operations and Enrollment. So what we'd like to do today is talk to you a little bit. When we were here last May and June, we were really bringing the city up to speed in terms of where we were with phase 1 of our expansion, which was the School of Business and Economics. We want to share with you today that we are right on track with that school. The renovations are complete. Our team is moving in as we speak. We're getting very excited about ribbon cutting ceremony that we'll be launching in the fall. We have over 500 students enrolled in that program for the September startup. If you recall, when we came in June, Council approved the completion of that project and about a $575,000 investment to complete phase 1. You also asked us to come back in the summer and to present a proposal for phase 2 expansion and the opportunity that a phase 2 would bring in terms of another enrollment increase of 500 students. And so we've been working very hard over the last 3 months with the staff of the city, with our team, to really try to come up with something that is very innovative, that meets the needs of the Brampton community, particularly in this time of transformation and growth. And so today you're going to hear all about that, that vision. So in terms of the partnership, our goal would be to expand our Brampton campus and to contribute to your economy by generating $165.6 million of new economic activity by 2028. To do this, our plan is to grow the campus to 1,000 full-time equivalency students by 2023, and in doing that, support 273 direct and indirect jobs. We've already invested $3.4 million to launch the School of Business and Economics. That, as I mentioned earlier, has increased enrollment to 500 students from about 65 when we first started the exercise about a year and a half ago. Next phase, what we're looking at is to expand by another about 10,600 square feet of classroom and student space, and that will accommodate the growth of the next 500 students. So ultimately what we're looking at is a footprint in your downtown, particularly in the square, of about 24,000 square feet. So the partnership proposal that's before you today is been really well vetted by the staff and by the senior executive of the university, and we would be asking for a $7.3 million investment by the city of Brampton over a 3-year period, which would expand the campus's economic impact currently from $3.6 million to about $30.1 million by 2028. When we first brought the proposal forward in a concept or an idea, we talked a little bit about the time sensitivity, and we figured we had about 3 months to really pull the concept together, and it's been an incredible exercise. I think we're all excited about the potential, and you're going to hear more about the vision of the center in a few minutes. But what I do want to bring to your attention is the time sensitivity. For us to reach the current enrollment targets and to be opening the new center in fall of 2020, we need to be executing our enrollment strategy and our marketing and recruitment strategy by September 2019. We're ready to go. We've already been doing some work on it, particularly with the School of Business and Economics, and so our team is poised to be able to do this, but we would need the decision to be made to be able to get out to market in the fall. The other thing that's happening is there are some real estate opportunities that have presented themselves to us, and when we look at the adjacencies to the School of Business and Economics and its location in Garden Square, the two other facilities that are open to us right now really provide a wonderful opportunity to have a very, very strong presence, and is part of our risk adversement in terms of making sure that people know we're here, that we can get the word out to the community that they have a university in the downtown Brampton core. And we don't know how long those prime real estate opportunities are going to be here, so I think the quicker we're able to get into agreements, the better it is for the project. So in terms of what each partner would be contributing, we would be asking the City of Brampton to make a total investment of $7.3 million, 2.5, and 2.3. Respectively, and then Algoma University would make a total investment over the next 3 years of $27 million. And I'll just let you take a look at the slide. So in essence, your investment of $7.3 million and the university's investment of $27 million will actually see a return. So for every dollar that is spent on developing phase 2, the City of Brampton will realize 10 additional dollars contributing back to the economy of the city. And that would start immediately, and we'll go into a little bit more information in a minute. So again, phase 2, we're really working to situate ourselves in the downtown core within Garden Square. We'll be launching a robust marketing campaign. We will be focusing on your domestic, local markets and expanding programming that is really shaped by the community and the regional need as shared by your staff and all of the many reports that have been generated over the last several years in terms of what your needs will be moving forward from a social, economic, and cultural perspective. We'll be focusing on establishing some key partnerships moving forward. We already have developed some strong partnerships, but we think there's still a lot of opportunity in that area as well. So overall, just to summarize, we would be looking at 6 new academic programs, 3 in September or the fall of 2020, and then additionally 3 new programs being added by 23-24. We feel this will be a real contribution to the revitalization of the downtown, and we'll be bringing in a number of new staff and faculty, looking at some pretty significant partnerships with local businesses and organizations. And again, I've shared this with you in the past, but one of the things that we love about the downtown core is the number of businesses that are already set up and situated to provide a strong partnership with the university. So we are not looking to put cafeterias and gymnasiums and football fields and all of that sort of thing. We'd actually like to focus on the academic programming and look at partnership to be able to offer the additional services that our students will need to have a tremendous university experience while they're with the university and while they're in the downtown. So I'm just going to turn over to Brent, and he's going to speak to you a little bit about our plans for enrollment growth.
Yeah, so what this investment means in terms of enrollment is a couple of different things. Like one, you're going to see growth, which Osma touched on. So we'd expect our enrollment to double, close to double over the next 3 years from a little over 500 students this September to over 1,000 students by 2023, 2024. The other change you're going to see in enrollment is a shift in the type of students studying at our Brampton campus. Right now, the majority of students are international students. Over the course of the next 3 years, we would expect to see that flip, and the majority of students being Canadian students from the Brampton and Poole region predominantly, with some international students. So what the two factors really driving that, number one, the program expansion that I'm going to get into in a little bit, and implementation of a marketing plan that's really focused on serving Brampton, Poole district students. So what we're proposing to respond to the growing needs of the City of Brampton is to launch a Center for Social, Cultural, and Economic Innovation in your downtown core. So what that means in terms of program expansion is that by next fall 2020, we'd have 3 new academic areas with programs, degrees, and certificates. So those would be psychology, computer science, and community economic and social development. And those are three of the strongest programs at Algoma University. Community economic and social development is actually a unique program to Algoma and something that we do really, really well. And they're programs that are well aligned with what we've heard from the City of Brampton and its strategies to retain talent, attract industry to town, and build the social capital within the community. 3 years down the road, in fall 2023, we'd be looking to add 3 additional programs, as Ozma mentioned. And this would be social work, law and justice, and an environmental studies program. And again, this is in response to what we've heard from the City of Brampton, but also community stakeholders when we've been in talks talking about what this expansion would look like. These are programs that we know are in demand domestically, so Canadian secondary school students are looking for programs in these areas, but also that students can access via college pathways. Algoma's got a really diverse student body. We'll talk about it a bit, but a high percentage of international students, close to 30% international students, but we also have a lot of students coming through different pathways, so coming directly from high school and through colleges. And so we've already began talks with the GTA colleges to set up pathways so that when these programs are launched here in 2023, that there's pathways established to make it easy for students to transfer from or transition from places like Sheridan or Seneca or Humber into our campus in downtown Brampton. Through the expansion, we're going to maintain our commitment to small class sizes. And this is something very unique to Algoma University. It's not at all typical in the Ontario university landscape. So right now in Brampton, our average class size is a little bit less than 25 students. First year classes are less than 30 students. Again, that's really unique, and we think it's of great value to students. What it means to students is access to faculty. Their work is being reviewed and they're getting regular feedback from faculty, but it also allows us to provide hands-on learning opportunities right from year one, whether it's casework or experiential learning, that sort of thing. There's a big focus on student success. So all of our students receive access to numeracy, literacy, and free tutoring. We want all of our students to graduate and be successful at school and after school, after graduation. And we certainly consider ourselves to be an access university. And I mentioned that a little bit, and that students are coming from multiple different paths, whether it's straight from high school through college as a mature student or international students. So I've got a list of the international tuition rates across Ontario up on the screen. And so Algoma has the lowest international tuition of any university in Ontario, and that's been very deliberate, and it all relates to student success. In addition to the lower tuition rates, we've got generous scholarship programs that are available to all of our students, whether you're coming directly from a Brampton high school, whether you're coming from an international market, or whether you're coming via a community college. And we put a lot of work into our transition programming. So for students coming from overseas, we're providing transition programming to them, whether it's academic or non-academic support services before they leave and start their journey to Canada, and it extends well beyond their time during orientation week at the university. So I think Ozma is going to touch on a few metrics, and then we'll call our other partners up too.
Yeah, so one of the questions we were asked is how will we report back to the city on the progress we're making and the impact of the programming in the downtown. So we invested in this. How do we know it's working? And so one of the things we want to share with you today is we already are engaged in conversations with the Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities around performance metrics tied to the Strategic Mandate Agreement process. And these are some of the metrics that we would be sharing with them as well. And so it would be very easy for us to provide you with an annual or biannual report on some of these indicators. So we see reporting back to you on the completion of capital investments that we're making. We've listed some of the things that would be important, we think, to the city. Research facilities, we know housing is very important, classrooms, status of renovations, etc. We'd also be interested in reporting out to you the expansion of curricular and extracurricular programs that are available to students on our Brampton campus. We really want students to have a true university experience while we're here, not just the academic program, but we want them to really experience the city of Brampton and all it has to offer. And so thinking about the unique programs for extracurricular, for example, what kinds of intramurals might we provide, what would orientation look like, how can we get these students attached and connected to the community while they're here. We know if we connect them, the chances of them staying here and keeping the talent pool in your community goes up pretty significantly. We'll obviously share enrollment and growth patterns, the economic impact data over time, the social impact data, and some of the other things that are up here. We're very interested in bringing experiential learning metrics to the city. We are investing a lot right now in co-op programs, workplace experiences, and other kinds of experiential learning opportunities for students because we want to connect them to employment upon graduation. So Susan's going to share with you a little bit of work. One of the things you asked us for in June was an economic impact study and what would the impact be if we were to bring 1,000 students onto into the downtown. And so MZ has done that for us. So I'll introduce you to Susan and she'll get started.
Hi group. Hi everyone, I'm Susan Hackett. I am an economist at MZ. We're an international labor market analytics company. Our Canadian regional input-output model was actually commissioned by the Government of Ontario several years ago, and we currently provide labor market data to the Ontario Workforce Development Board and the Ministry of Economic Development. So we've been conducting economic impact analyses for about 20 years now that can be regionalized to small geographic areas like Brampton. So in looking at this projected impact that Algoma will have on Brampton with its expansion over the next 10 years, we looked at 4 different types of impact. We have one-time, short-run capital spending impacts from renovations. And then in terms of long-run, we have operational expenses, day-to-day, things like payroll, facility maintenance. We have student spending, both from retaining local students in Brampton as well as those international students that are brought to the city for their education. And then finally, the alumni impacts, which are the most significant and powerful impacts and really get down to the heart of that human capital that drives economic development. You can wait for skilled workers to come to Brampton and work here, or you can train them right here in Brampton, and that can drive this sort of significant impact. We follow a very conservative methodology here, so I know economic impact studies can get a bad rap for overstating things, so we try to be as conservative as possible. You notice we measured everything in terms of added income, which is a measure synonymous with gross domestic product and excludes most gross output and intermediary costs. We account for counterfactual scenarios, so we adjust for things like alternative investment, students' other education opportunities, employers' other hiring options. When we're looking at that alumni impact over time, we're adjusting for attrition, students selling into careers, migration, unemployment, et cetera. And then when we calculate this return on investment, we're only looking at the difference in benefits that accrue because of the expansion itself. So you'll see here this graph of the annual impacts starting at around $3 million and growing to over $30 million by 2028, with, again, that alumni impact being the largest. And we look at that year-over-year difference in what might happen if there's no expansion versus what will happen with an expansion. We see a cumulative present value of $85 million over the next 10 years. In terms of employment impacts, 273 annual jobs supported by 2028, 114 jobs created with an average annual income of about $60,000. And in terms of a multiplier, for every $1 million invested by the city, we see about 14 jobs created. And then this graph of the ROI, it is a dynamic figure, so it will increase over time long after the city is done with this 3-year investment. It will continue to generate benefits for the city with that average return on investment of about 10.7.
And one of the things we wanted to also do today is just to share with you some of the campus master planning work that we've been doing over the last 3 months. As we said, we're getting very excited about the potential in Brampton, and I think Jorge's work on the campus master planning exercise will give you a sense of some of what we're thinking.
Thank you very much. As Asima mentioned, I'm Jorge Garcia. I'm an architect with IBI Group. I see we don't have much time, so I'll be quick. As part of this exercise, we also we're doing it in similarly at the same time, I would say, as the master plan for the university. So we had a chance to look at the city and the spaces that the university sees or needs in a synergetic manner. We looked at the city of Brampton, and the particular place where we're planning to have our phase 2 expansion, the downtown core, not only from the micro and the physical point of view, but also from the urban and the articulation and regional point of view. So we analyzed the potential for access to transportation, access to amenities, access to open areas and green spaces, and how the spaces that are going to be taken over by Algoma are going to give back to the public realm, and how are they going to enhance the urban realm and the actual fabric of the city per se. And every decision that we have made is being vetted by a study and an analysis of the opportunities that are going to be derived from that decision. So it's about creating synergies, either activating ground planes, providing accessibility for a wider population, increase the vibrancy and the use of the downtown core spaces, acting as a catalyst for revitalization of the downtown core, how the uses are going to implement or improve. There you go. All right. So we also study how the uses are going to work in terms of the location and relation in terms of the horizontal plane, but also the vertical plane as well. How the student experience is going to be paramount, and how the student experience is going to be enhanced by having access to the infrastructure that the city has to offer, and make it a part of the overall student success approach that Algoma is extremely interested in. And that goes beyond academics. It also has to do with what students eat, what services do they use, how do they use a library, whether they have access to a potential makerspace or innovation spaces where they can do some sort of co-working or industry training, where do they live. We recognize housing as a very important stream of this endeavor, not only for Algoma per se, but also to Brampton and to help fulfill the city aspirations of becoming a post-secondary hub. So as part of my campus master plan, we're starting a stream, a deep dive into what the student housing means in general in Brampton, in particular as well for Algoma. And the idea is to study and to work with the city closely to potentially create task forces that would study city housing options for the students around two main pillars, student mobility and student demographics. And working that out through training programs that are going to be implemented in Algoma, tailored to both domestic and international students, and also with starting potential synergies with student unions or developers, or even the city current programs for housing as well. We have some ideas of what could be. Again, these are just vision, and it's about what the public realm and what the overall experience is going to mean for the downtown, and how that will eventually be a catalyst for potential growth or potential opportunities. So it's interesting because in some of the talks we refer to the tip of the iceberg and how this could grow, and we have to be ready and prepared for that. So that's what the master plan is doing.
So that really brings us to the conclusion of the presentation. We're happy to answer any questions. I think just closing remarks. When we first came about a year ago with the idea for a school of business and economics, I think everyone was excited about that, and we were interested to see what would happen. I think today we know what can happen. The School of Business and Economics was the first real catalyst to the potential, what we understand is huge potential for growth in Brampton, and we're very excited to be here. We want to work with the city. I think you see from IBI and MZ that we're really committing a lot of resources to make sure we're working alongside the city and in partnership, and really contributing to the overall vision of 2040 and where you'd like to go, and we're just thrilled to be a part of it. So thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you for the presentation. We have a lengthy list of speakers already, but I just want to say, first of all, this is exciting for our city. When you had your first presentation, you talked about your cafeteria was going to be our downtown. Your rec centers, your gym was going to be getting involved in the city, using our parks, and obviously that's a beautiful integration into the municipality. Two things that I had heard previously in your presentations that just thought would be of benefit to council to hear. You talked about an emphasis previously on local students, getting local students the opportunity. How does this second phase enable you to get local students to sign up where that might not have been possible during the first phase? If you could just make sure everyone understands that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, the programs that we've designed and the vision for the center is actually really focused on recruiting from your domestic and local environment. So we have heard from the city and from the mayor how important it is to keep your young people here and to connect them with local opportunities. And we've also heard from some communities that they don't want their children going to downtown Toronto or having to travel 2-3 hours a day. They want an opportunity for them to study right here close to home. So this is what we're trying to provide. Yes, we'll have some international enrollment, no question, but this phase 2 is really targeting your local needs and your local community. And when we looked at the UAC data, the 3 programs that we're using and launching in the fall 2020 are actually programs that are very attractive to your domestic market. Your students are leaving for those programs.
Wonderful. And the second question is, in terms of the employment opportunities at Algoma in Brampton, will there be opportunities for local employment?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually are posting a number of positions right now, and all of those positions are local positions. So we're hoping to recruit, because we know if people know the community, the opportunity for integrating is much stronger, the opportunity for partnership, less transition. The leadership on the campus, we're actually in process right now of recruiting a senior executive that will be part of my team, who will be a very strong presence on this site as well, and we're hoping to pull locally for that position as well.
And so there'll be faculty, you can envision faculty opportunities?
Lots.
Okay, wonderful. Music to my ears. Well, I know we got a long list of speakers, so Councillor Fertini explained to me that Councillor Singh accidentally took his name off the list. Councillor Singh verifies that, so we'll let Councillor Fertini go back to it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions. So the first phase you had, it shows here that you had about 500 students. You're expanding to 1,000 students. What's the cap on international students and local students on the first phase?
Do you want to speak to that, Brent, or do you want me to? I can answer to come. Okay. So in our first phase, we actually weren't able to get to domestic market. We launched the school in July and opened it in September. And so we really focused on the international market, which was still quite available to us. In this next fall intake, we have a much stronger domestic presence. Our goal is to be at a 60-40 split, 60%, is it 60-40 or 70-30? 60-40. So what we're doing now is shifting. Now that we can get into the domestic market, we've got lots of time, that we'll be shifting that recruitment exercise to be at about a 60-40 split, 60 domestic and 40% international.
That's great. And I see it's from 500 to 1,000 students. How are we going to accommodate these students where they live when you can't even find an apartment anywhere in Brampton?
Yeah, so part of the study that we're doing through MZ is to really understand the housing market, and also because this particular phase is focused on your domestic, one of the things we're trying to understand, we think many of the students that are coming in September 2020 will actually be coming from their homes. So they will be local students that are already living in Brampton. Having said that, we know that we need to still focus on the housing and work very closely with the city and perhaps developers to ensure that our students do have a place to live and a safe place to live.
Well, I go downtown or anywhere in Brampton, you look, it's very hard to find a place to live.
Yeah.
I think if we put all these students in one school and then they have no place to live, I think we should maybe also focus where they're going to live.
Yeah.
You know, also just going to crowd and it's going to be rooming houses everywhere downtown. That's what we're worried about. Yeah. Well, I'll listen to what the other councilor's saying. You know, education's always good. You know, and I'm just worried about the students where they're going to go live, and hoping we could get more local students than international, because we're giving money for international. Meanwhile, it's taxpayers' money. They're going to say, oh, you're funding other people. Meanwhile, our local students, you can't get them. So that's one more. Thank you.
Councillor Willens. There was a request from Councillor Bowman to speak first, so Councillor Willens, I'm letting you go.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, you answered, actually you asked one of the questions I had in terms of the enrollment, but also I'm maybe speaking towards the, as Councillor Fertini touched on another question I had, but maybe we'll speak to the coming up with your community economic and social development. What will that course entail? I know that you're talking about some cultural stuff behind that. Would that include like the Indigenous culture and perhaps the Canadian culture as well, for not only our local, but for some of the domestic students as well coming in?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Willens. Community Economic and Social Development is a program we're bringing to Brampton because we heard the need was there. The program really complements the School of Business and Economics. So if you think what the School of Business and Economics, it really is it's driven by the corporate structures and is a stronger focus on finance, business, that sort of thing. Community Economic Social Development looks at challenges within the community, and students are engaged in placements, experiential learning opportunities. It really brings in both the social and the economic piece. We see students taking a fairly, there'll be a core set of courses that all students in the Center for Cultural, Social and Economic Innovation, that they'll have a core group of courses. One of them will be around Indigenous worldview, but others will be focused on social innovation, economic growth, some of the challenges that your community will face as it continues to have the rapid growth that it's experiencing. And I think what we see is that the city will actually bring us some challenges, whether it comes from the city itself or some of the partners, and we'll be working on real problems with our students in this center.
So I guess the course was basically more designed than what you face in Sault Ste. Marie with the different cultures up there with the Indigenous, trying to get the challenges they have in the northern countries on getting them to be in the economic sort of side of things.
Yeah, and I mean, we've heard from your arts community as well that there's a need to do some of the economic development work and bring entrepreneurial programming and how do I run a business. Not-for-profit organizations are asking for some opportunity to enhance skill sets in those areas. So we would custom make this program specific to Brampton's needs. Although we have the program in Sault Ste. Marie, it'll have a different look and feel because Brampton is has different needs than a community like Sault Ste. Marie or Timmins would have.
Okay, great. Second question, I guess that sort of answered the question. With the courses you're bringing, and let's say in 2023 with the environmental studies, will there be opportunities for us to work with you on not only what the federal and provincial levels towards climate change are, but our local levels as well, such as our flood mitigation with downtown or some of our other naturalized areas? Will that course sort of be geared kind of towards to work with the local impacts and not just the federal?
Yeah, through the mayor back to Councillor Willens, it is part of why we were bringing environmental studies programming to Brampton. We see great opportunity for students to have hands-on real learning opportunities to work on real problems in a developing city. We've been following the work that the city has been championing around some of the environmental concerns that are out there, and so we look forward to bringing this program to, whether it's environmental science or it's environmental studies, those are things we have to determine yet, and we'll do that based on the needs of the community.
Okay, great. And I was pleased that during the presentation that you mentioned you work with not only the secondary schools, because we have I think 35 secondary schools here I think in Brampton, but also with the community colleges, the local community colleges, so Sheridan and the Humbers that are in the area, to get them for the postgrad to carry on their education. So that's encouraging, because a lot of those kids that go to Humber and Sheridan now are local. They do live in the area, the Mississauga, Brampton area, and the Rexdale area. So it's nice to know there'll be a university opportunity to expand their programs. I know my son went to Sheridan for woodworking, but there was no business after that. He finished his course, and then there wasn't a business to run the business. He's successful now, but it would be nice to know that he can go locally and get that business side of things after you've already learned your trade. So that's great. Thanks very much for coming.
Okay, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for coming. Always great to see somebody doing business and economic development in downtown Brampton. We love it. I had the same question as Councillor Fortini did about housing. It's a big issue for me because Sheridan College is in my wards, and I know exactly what's happening in Sheridan College with their students that they're bringing in and the dangers that are existent there. So I'm very interested, especially in that plan. I was hoping to see something about housing for students, because it's definitely needed. If we're bringing in foreign students, we should not be bringing in foreign students if we don't have places for them to live and stay and live safely. So he addressed that, so we'll leave that. I just had a question about, you mentioned you have scholarships for various individuals. Do you have scholarships available for mature students? Students or people who are in a position who are outsourced, for example, and need to retrain?
Yeah, absolutely. Like our scholarship program is very inclusive, so regardless of which pathway you're applying through, there's scholarships available to you. Another piece that I think is pretty unique to Algoma is Algoma's got a program called Recognition of Prior Learning, where someone who comes as a mature student, they might not have a college diploma that they could earn transfer credits for, but based on their work experience, we'll grant a certain number of credits to them for the knowledge they've acquired working in a particular field for over 5 or 6 years or whatever it might be. So, yeah.
Good. That's great. And will that be included in all your outgoing material to source local students?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a market here that has not even been touched. So.
Okay. And the other thing we are trying to do as we look at your downtown core is to provide opportunities where students don't have to necessarily come back for a 3 or 4 year degree, but they can come for a very intense period, maybe 1 year, or we can offer ongoing training if we see a need For example, the arts community keeps coming to mind because we know there's a need there, but we don't think students that are already working in the field of the arts necessarily want to be committing to a 3-year degree, but they may want some business courses and some entrepreneurial courses, and so we see ourselves working with the Innovation Center, for example, and some of the other things that are being developed by the City of Brampton, so that we can partner on these things and do intensive training sessions where people can't commit to a full 3-year degree.
Good. Thank you.
Councillor Pelletier. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'll start off by saying I love the fact that Algoma's here in Brampton. I love the fact that Algoma's established and wants to grow and get better and be really a key component in our downtown. What I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about was the international students that are coming, the international rates, why you feel that you need to be as low as you are, and with so many international students in Brampton currently, and I think Sheridan has some 7,000 international students now, and I don't know what the tuition fee is for those international students at Sheridan. I've heard it ranges from anywhere upwards to 25,000 potentially. So, why do you feel the need to have the bar set so low for that rate for international students?
In terms of the 40%, 60%?
The tuition
fee. Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is we know how challenging it is for the international community when they come here. Not only do they have to pay the tuition rate, but they also have to pay room and board or housing, food, etc. So it's very challenging for many. There are international students that do have the means, but a lot of them have to work while they're here. There's added stress. What we're trying to do is really make it accessible and make them successful. And we think we can do it within that tuition framework. We know we can. We've analyzed it. Could we increase our fees to $25,000? Absolutely, we could. We think there's real merit in sharing a message that we don't think we need to, and that we really want to be focusing on their experience. We actually invest a lot of that tuition revenue into a very strong orientation program. We invest in tutoring, language, ESL, student supports, getting them out into the communities. We take them all over the place. We want them to see Canada. I think the last trip they went to was, were they in Niagara? And, we've got students going, because we want them to fall in love with Canada while we're here as well. And does some of that revenue come back in to support the university? Absolutely. But I think Algoma is not the same as most universities. We have a real social calling, right? And so we are very careful that we don't jeopardize our values as we're making corporate decisions. And you'll see that even when we do our class size analysis, right? You're not going to see classes of 150 in our university. We want to keep them small so people can be successful. We track students. We want them to have a relationship with their faculty so that they're getting the very best of experiences while they're here. If they're only here for a year or 2 years or 3 years, we don't want them just working with TAs. We want them to have an opportunity. And students are telling us this is way different even from our home university, right? So it's something that we value and something that we'll continue to move forward with.
So I guess I'm looking at this as hopefully the support and growth of this long term, and hopefully Algoma one day is coming here to announce that their enrollment's going up to 10,000, 15,000, and I guess that's where we need to look at this from our side of the standpoint. When we were I guess you can ask every councillor up here, and we all knocked on doors during the election and found a lot of houses that had 15, 17 students living in that house, international students, And it is, as much as we want them to come, we want them to learn and support and give back, that's a strain on not only the city as a whole, but that community as well. So I guess what I'm kind of looking at is, you know, from our point of view, what can we do to ensure that the students that are coming here, or is there an opportunity or potential that there's money and there's savings for the city of Brampton to put back into that community? And if that's, I don't know if that's through tuition fees or not, but I can see that, you know, again, with Sheridan having 7,000, and Algoma hopefully one day having 10,000 or 20,000, that we set the bar now for that long term. And I don't know how we get there.
Well, I think one of the things that we're looking to do right now is to hire a leader for this site, a senior executive leader that reports directly to me. And one of the priorities will be that housing and settling piece. I think you're right. 1,000 is very conservative. We use the 1,000 for our business case analysis to make sure we're going to be successful and we can sustain the operation. Will this grow beyond 1,000? There's not a doubt in my mind. How big will it grow? I think that's to be determined. Do we want to grow too quickly? The answer is no, because we've got some challenges that we have to work through over the course of the next couple of years as we position it. But we also want to take advantage of opportunity as it arises, and I think we're very flexible and nimble and are able to take advantage of opportunities as they come. I think it's about working very closely together. We've heard that there is a problem in terms of housing, and I think it's about putting a task force together and really thinking about how are we going to address this. And,
so I think you'll find that there are willing partners out there in the private sector that are looking for support and are more than willing to come into our downtown, more than willing to put in some student condos or apartments, whatever the case may be. I think there's a number of them out there. I'm interested to see how that conversation goes. I'd also like to know from the percentage of students that you have now to your, I think it was 24,000, how many of those students would actually come into the downtown? What's the percentage of that as opposed to online or any type of other courses that wouldn't bring them directly into the downtown?
So this enrollment growth is based on all of those students being in the downtown. Okay. So the facilities can hold that capacity. Will we offer online programming as a university? Yes, we already do, and we'll be continuing to expand that. But this group is full-time equivalency in the downtown area.
And so online courses, I think you have some. There are online courses where it's a percentage online, a percentage in the class. Yeah. Are those captured in these numbers?
Yeah, so what we have here is predominantly face-to-face classes. Can students choose an online course if they want to? Yes. Yeah. And some do prefer if they're working or there's a scheduling conflict, then they'll ask for an online option. But these numbers are based on full-time equivalency, again, in the downtown.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think some of the previous speakers had touched on some of the points that I wanted to mention. I know you mentioned particularly the housing. I'm looking at some stats just across the city, and I think if you take a look at some of the domestic to international right now, it's 73% is international, which is fine. But down the road, we're getting to 60-40, about 400 international, 600 domestic. So quick question for you right now. How do we, can you talk a little bit about how you got to 600 and how we ensure that these 600 are local? Will they be local to Brampton? Will they be local to Ontario? Like, are you mandated to have a certain ratio? Are you mandated to look across Ontario, or can you just select from Brampton?
Yeah, so through the mayor, we are not mandated. We can select our own targets. But I'll turn it over to Brent to kind of explain the rationale for why we're at the 60-40 and how that works.
Yeah, we looked at a program by program domestic international breakdown. So what we looked at a couple different things. We took our current 500 students, and those are School of Business students, and we expect to see a shift, an increasing percentage of domestic students in that program and fewer international students. More students shifting from certificate programming to four-year BBA degree programming. And I mean, not all of the growth has been international to date, right? Osmond talked about that, okay, last year, or when we started this conversation a year and a half ago, we had less than 100 students studying in Brampton. That was a mix of domestic and international. We've got 135 international, or domestic right now. So the international is growing, just not as rapidly to date as the international has.
Domestic.
So the domestic.
Sorry, domestic is growing, just not as rapidly over the past year as the international did. But then we took a look at, okay, computer science, psychology, community economic and social development, and what enrollment patterns do we see for those programs? Computer science will have a mix. We think of domestic. It'll be attractive to domestic and international students. We know that there's a lot of demand from Canadian students for this program. It's our top enrolled program in Sault Ste. Marie, and we know there's demand for it across the GTA. Psychology and community development, we expect the majority of demand for those programs to be Canadian students. There's a lot of appetite amongst high school students across Ontario. Osma mentioned the Ontario University Application Centre stats. Psychology is always one of the most popular programs in the province. And community development as well. The community development is it's a domestically driven program, and many of the students for that program are coming via Canadian community colleges. So we basically looked at enrollment patterns for the four programs that we're going to be offering there by 2023. In terms of like where the students are coming from, our focus on reaching out and getting them and telling them about what we're doing, very much on Brampton and Peel region. We think there's huge demand here for those programs. Now the application portal that they're going to apply through is open to secondary school students across the province. So I would expect there's a smattering of students from other parts of the GTA, maybe parts of Ontario that are a little bit west of here. But the majority of those students, at least at the start, I think are going to come from the city and the region.
And can you speak a little bit about your team's focus in the local high school?
I guess what I kind of asked is, this is not mandated by the province for you to come up with this number.
No.
This is something that you've kind of calculated what it could be based upon examining, some of those other programs, psychology or whatever it may be. So kind of answered that question. Some of the concerns I have. The reason why I brought up some of the international students was right now we have 8,000 out of 23,000 students at Sheridan who are international students. My own personal opinion is that I think the province or the federal government has not done enough to assist municipalities in the influx of students we've seen. There's no blame at all to the students. There's 150,000 students right now in Canada. 125,000 of those are from the Punjab area in India, which myself and Harkirat Singh, Councillor Singh, are obviously familiar with, us being Punjabi. But there's certain issues that are going on back in their home for which they're coming to here in such great numbers. There's economic issues, there's lack of opportunity, very educated society there, but there's really nothing to do, nowhere to go. Much of it is a farming society. They sell their land, they come here, look for opportunity, which is good for them. But as we've seen as a municipality, I've seen 25 of these kids live in one home, and that really leads to no good. And so I don't know who to blame. I don't think it's the municipality, it's the province. I don't know if it's the universities, it's the colleges, or the federal government. They're living in substandard housing right now, and that's my concern. If we're going to be adding, whether we're adding 10 or 20 or 400, what are we doing to ensure that we have adequate housing in the city? What conversations is our staff having with you? Have you spoken to the provincial government, the federal government? Like, can you shine some light on that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One is, as we're doing the campus master planning exercise, one of the things we're looking at is a 7 to 10 year campus master plan. And we've asked IBI to take a pretty significant leadership role and make this one of the priorities in the planning. So I don't know, Jorge, if you want to speak to some of the work that you're doing right now and the kind of consultation and conversation that would be taking place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very valid question, and I would say it's a pressing item not only for Brampton, for the GTA in general. We know that in Toronto there is a study that is being undertaken right now. It's being spearheaded by York University, and it's called Dual TO. And
sorry, what's it called?
Dual TO.
Dual TO.
Dual TO. It's a spin-off from research that was done on mobility, student mobility, and the results were shared and they're public now. And then the present issue of student housing came up. So the four big universities in Toronto, they're joining forces with the city and the private sector and non-for-profit organizations to come together, create a task force, and of course inviting the student body, and talk about the different options and the challenges for student housing. This is what I think needs to happen here. It has to be a consensual effort. We have to put our thinking caps and come up with a plan and a system, and think about it not only as Algoma, but as the city as a whole, the GTA in terms of mobility and interchange of student population, and all the post-secondary, both colleges and universities that are either here or that are planning to come to the region as well. We are touching on this as part of a master plan for Algoma, and again, the vision is a 10-year, more or less, scenario, and we're trying to go on a conservative basis and identifying the problem first and try to set up the framework for this to happen. I would say we need to get engaged more, we need to talk. We need to get this going fairly quickly, because the things as they are right now, they're not working and they're a hazard, as you mentioned.
Right. So you're saying we identify a problem, which I think there's an already significant problem. It's already a strain on the city as well. We have to send our officers out to many of these. Again, no fault of the students; they're just young kids. But we're going after all these. Lodging houses, you could say. And so if you were to say right now we're going to have a master plan, it's going to take 10 years. And I know you said, you mentioned that there's going to be a task force. These sound very good, sound comforting right now. What do you foresee in 10 years? What is the end result that you want to see? And do you know what the 5-year plan is, what the 2-year plan is? What are the different stages that lead up to 10 years and what you want to accomplish?
It's about what can get accomplished in the short period of time, whether the solution is temporary or more long-term. Sometimes, if we have a very problematic issue at hand, the solution, the most easy to fix and to implement, would be a temporary solution that would make the problem less problematic without eliminated it per se. There are many factors like implementation, the dollars that have to be put into place. Ideally, the end result that we see here is a planned approach to enrollment growth for all the post-secondary institutions. So students will have a place to go depending on their cultural background, the place they're coming from, and their fund availability. And it's about identifying how do we get there, who do we involve, what portion of the student housing it's funded by social housing agencies or the federal government or even provincial government, how the private sector can jump in and help, because we have come across different actors during around our practice with related or unrelated projects. We have been approached with interest. They're showing interest in being part of this. Also, the homeowners, the single homeowner. Algoma right now, they have Algoma has a program, right? Not a program, that is called Homestay. And that program basically is about teaching the students and letting the students know what to expect and how is the housing market in Canada. So that's a program that I see very easily, very easy to implement here in Brampton as well. And it will grow not only to the students, it can involve the homeowners as well, and potentially the potential developers for the city. Student union, alternative modes of operation and ownership of houses. There is an initiative out of Montreal where a student union partner with developers and they become operators of newly built, designed and built housing units. So part of a revenue that comes from rent, it's managed by a student union and it's given back into programs that promote student growth and so on. So there are a few options on the table. The idea is to continue working on those and getting together into something concrete and carry it through.
So those are options you're going to be looking at, is that
yes.
right? So appreciate that. So the next question I got is for staff, just in relation to, I don't know if I'm looking at Al. Perhaps staff can respond. We had a study done, I think, in the last term of council in terms of, housing, I believe. The staff is supposed to report back, if I'm not incorrect, on student housing.
Through the chair, I don't recall. It certainly wasn't through community services, but it might have been through another department. But
sorry, you were looking at me, so I was just asking you. So maybe it's to Joe. Like, even to that question I asked, but just overall, what are we going to be doing in terms of student housing going forward as a municipality?
Through the chair, and my apologies. I also don't recall having a report last term, and I remembered a discussion around student housing. I don't recall direction given to do research in and around that.
Sorry, if I could cut you off 1 sec. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if I could recall correctly, it was Councillor Gibson who moved it. There was a traffic impact study involved in that as well. And it involved housing when the Ryerson project was approved at that time. Sorry, go on.
Through the chair, thank you for the clarification. That actually sounds somewhat familiar in terms of the growth of a campus in the downtown and the impacts on transit and traffic and the implications of that, especially as it pertained to if we're going to have that many students, where would the housing be, and the traffic patterns associated to that. I remember that, vaguely remember that discussion now. However, I don't know that any work was done on that item. In terms of what we are going to do as a city in terms of student housing, again, housing in and of itself currently is the responsibility of the region. We work closely with them to identify opportunities to create more affordable units, and we do the best we can to create those opportunities. We are very open to working with council and the region to, again, look at those opportunities, recognizing we have some issues with illegal second units, and we want to make sure that people who live in this city are safe, taken care of, and that those who are not going to abide by the Ontario Building Code are held up to those consequences associated to it. Well, we have an obligation to provide safe, adequate, affordable opportunities to people.
Thank you. So and I'll conclude by this. I think it's an important discussion we need to have. I'm certainly going to speak to some of our provincial counterparts, I think, again, I'm looking at it from a human level, some of the conditions that these kids live in, and it's a responsibility for us, the region, the province, and everybody to see what we can do to help them. I've seen the substandards that they live in. Some of these homeowners who run these lodging houses, they'll build within kitchens, and so I just feel for the kids. And so whether I know some people play hockey. I played basketball, and there was billet programs. Perhaps there can be some type of program we can look at with some families to take in some of these students. And I'm just trying to think out of the box, but I like the fact that Algoma's coming. I think it brings great potential. There's a lot of impact, positive impact it will have, but there's certainly some things that we're going to have to continue to have discussions on going forward. Thanks so much for your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dillon. Now we're going to go for a second time to Councillor Willens.
Only because you took me off the board the first time. Now, just quickly, with the downtown, I know that you're looking for your administration building. I believe that as the university grows, you'll have to grow your administration building as well. With the downtown, with whether the Reimagine project goes through, but there's a lot of, there could be potential to a building site, depending on what happens with with the flood mitigation, if we can get that, the special policy area, if we can get that resolved. Would there be an opportunity down the road for perhaps Algoma building their own administration office or classes as well, rather than utilizing what's already in the downtown, if it's feasible?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been discussing a purchase of a building or a piece of property to put a sort of a beacon building somewhere in the downtown at some point. We're not ready to do that quite yet, but the overall goal would be at some point to establish ourselves as a property owner.
Yeah, so Algoma would be willing to work with the city to keep the money from enrollment in locally to keep expanding your programs and your facility here as well, rather than it expanding elsewhere. And once we made the investment with Brampton.
Yeah, just to respond, our goal right now is to work with the city, to be a really good partner with the city. You have a tremendous vision ahead of you, and we think this is just the start. So one of the things that our team is talking about with the city staff is, where would we put that reinvestment back in? And it probably is in continued growth. In terms of the administration area, yes, we will need a fairly substantial space for our administration. Are we married to one place? No, we're not. What we do need is to have a presence in the downtown. People need to know there is a very vibrant, strong, growing university in the downtown. So strategically, we would want to locate it. And right now, we've put it in the CIBC building, but Jorge's team is really looking at all real estate in the downtown for us as we think about a 7 to 10 year commitment that we're making. When we talk about a 10-year, it's not that we're going to do it in 10 years, right? But we want the map of where we're going. The School of Business and this phase 2 expansion was very quick. We want to have a vision and know where we're going to be in 10 years, and housing is part of that. I'm just going to refer, I would like to go back to the housing for 1 minute. On page 11, one of the things that we've asked IBI to look at is sort of it's in the third paragraph, but it talks about a hybrid housing model with a private developer. So we need to get into those conversations with the developers to see if we do have a private partner that would work with the university, the city, province, to really address this need.
Yeah, and I think Councillor Pelletier had mentioned that as well. And then I guess just quickly, secondly, I think it was probably in the late 90s, perhaps early 2000s, that the Council of the Day was talking about Brampton's own university somewhere, whether it's converting one of our spaces and doing stuff. I know that there's a lot of other municipalities that our size that have more than one post-secondary education. Because I know with Ryerson coming, and we've got Sheridan here as well, you mentioned working with other institutes. Would Algoma be opposed if, let's say 10, 15, 20 years down the road, Brampton all of a sudden decided they wanted to have their own university? would you be willing to work with other partners? Because I
Yeah.
know you're willing to work with colleges, and I know it's difficult, may not be an answer, question you can answer now, but there's been a lot of talk, like, in the past. Whether it comes to fruition or not, I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, the short answer is, of course. We live in a city of 80,000 people, and there's 2 universities and a college. One university is in Michigan, one university is in Sault Ste. Marie, and then the college is in Sault Ste. Marie. And the 3 are doing very well and are huge economic drivers for the city. Brampton is growing so rapidly. There is opportunity there for a number of post-secondary institutions. What we would want is transparency, so that we don't, that we work together and we don't try to duplicate or bring something in that's already establishing itself. We've been in very close contact with Ryerson, really talking about our strengths as a large university in downtown Toronto and as a smaller university. How can we work together? And, you know, we've got lots of ideas that are now starting to generate about using our strengths to bring something to Brampton that really meets the demand of the labor force, of the social environment, the economic environment, and where you're going over the course of the next 20 years. And how can we contribute? Universities want to help communities. That's why we're established, right? And each of us can play a role in that, I think.
That's good. And lastly, on the south side of Highway 17, about halfway between Blind River and Sault Ste. Marie, there's a nice little spot to get, or Sault Ste. Marie, or sorry, Sudbury and Blind River, there's a nice little spot to get some smoked trout. I'd love to have some.
Next time I come.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Santos.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for coming in again. It's always lovely to see Algoma here at Council. And always happy to hear about economic development in Brampton. My council colleagues, most of my questions have been answered, and I have a few questions for later on this afternoon. But I promised a colleague of mine to ask a question about your relationship with Indigenous and First Nations in Sault Ste. Marie, and whether or not there's an appetite for some of the community there to come to Brampton to also study. But also, have you reached out to the Peel Aboriginal Network to establish that connection? Because that's certainly one of the core competencies of the university.
Yeah, so we do have a leadership position that is focused on that work right now in Brampton. And in Sault Ste. Marie, and helping to make some of those connections. I'm not sure if you're aware, but one of the chiefs of our First Nations communities came up with the vision for Algoma University as a teaching wigwam on the site that it has currently in Sault Ste. Marie. And that particular chief was also a warrior, and he brought a team of warriors up the water system and played a pretty instrumental role in the War of 1812 right here. And so we see that connection as being really important. We have reached out to the Peel Aboriginal Network and to the Peel District School Board, and last year we co-hosted with the Peel District, with the 3 partners, the first Indigenous powwow in that school board's history. And it was a pretty powerful experience, but also really strengthened our relationship with the Peel Aboriginal Network. And so we've also been here on Indigenous Days, and we think that we've got some pretty special and unique strengths in that area that we could bring to Brampton. We've already been asked to do that, and we look forward to sharing that knowledge. I mean, Canada's history, it's true history. We know in this period of reconciliation that Canada has invested in that. We need to understand that history as a people, as a country, to be able to move forward with reconciliation. And what we learn from Indigenous culture, and in fact what we learn from all cultures, and what we can do with that learning as a community, I think is pretty incredible, and I think Algoma could play a fairly significant role in that.
And I think it's important because the growth in Brampton in particular is going to be the majority of immigrants and newcomers, and having that strength and education available for people coming to Brampton to understand the roots of our country and our Indigenous peoples is really important. And also to add to Councillor Willans, thank you so much for the partnership and always willing to work with the City of Brampton in the same way that Ryerson is doing as well, and Sheridan and all of our post-secondary partners. Thanks a lot.
Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just kind of did a quick search and I found that on the June 17th planning meeting, there was a report in regards to the City of Brampton initiated student housing policy review and upcoming rental protection policy review as well. So the question I have in relation to Algoma, if this report will also take into account the 1,000 students that will be coming to the downtown. So the question too is to our CAO.
Through the chair, given that this was directed recently to our planning and development team, I will work with our Commissioner of Planning and Development Services to ensure that feedback can be incorporated in that analysis and presented back to you. I believe it's slated for September.
Right, and just a quick question, last question as well. I was wondering if the traffic impact will be included in this as well for 1,000 kids coming to the downtown core.
So, again, through the chair, I can again meet with our Commissioner of Engineering and Public Works, our General Manager of Transit, as well as our Commissioner of Planning and Development to see whether or not that would be feasible at that time, and if not, hopefully it is, and if not, how quickly we could get you that.
Right, and so you'll keep us up to date.
100%.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for that presentation. Very exciting, and thank you for being here today.
Okay, thank you very much.
So we have a motion to receive the delegation from Councillor Willen, seconded by Councillor Palashi. All those in favor? See some hands? Motion carries. And we do this, do the staff report now? Okay. Although a motion from Councillor Willen, seconded by Councillor Palashi, to support the staff report, items 1, 2, and 3. It's on the screen? It's not on camera.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is the public report and the staff recommendations. There is a related closed session item that speaks to an aspect of this. Council could deal with this now and then deal with the closed session in its proper order, or council could decide to hold this down until after closed session.
Yeah. I'm looking to the...
I move holding it down until after closed session.
Okay, so we'll deal with it all together. Okay. Okay, at delegation 7.3. Michael Gagnon. You can't heckle the person giving the delegation before they've spoken.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. Michael Gagnon, I only listed myself to speak this morning, not knowing if there was going to be a delegation regarding one of the items on the minutes of Planning Committee. Seeing that there isn't anybody, it has to do with the Goreway project. I'll stand down this opportunity and wait to see if there are any issues that are raised when the minutes are brought forward, if that's okay with Council.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Fertini? No? Okay. Councillor Dillon?
Sorry, a question of, not in relation to this. When are we moving into closed session?
What item is that, the closed sessions?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's item 21. So we are on delegation item 7.3 right now. After consideration of that delegation, the next item would be 11.1, which are the Planning Committee minutes from July 10th. And then there is the bylaws, there is an added item 17.2 from Councillor Palashi. There are the bylaws, then there is public question period, and then council would move into closed session.
Right, I had a question. I wanted to, sorry, in relation to the minutes for the last city council meeting, I believe 21.9, I had questions of clarification in camera. Would I need to Would I be able to do that in camera?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. 21.1 on today's agenda are the closed session minutes from the July 10th council meeting. And if there is a question of clarification regarding those minutes and matters that were discussed at July 10th, they can be raised at that time in closed session.
Okay.
Okay. Seeing no other. Okay, so motion from Councillor Singh, seconded by Councillor Fertini to receive the delegation from Michael Gagnon. All those in favor, motion carries. Okay. So 9.1, we've already, the staff report we'll be dealing with in camera. Committee reports. We are now at item 11, committee reports or minutes. We have 2 committee reports in the form of minutes or recommendations on today's agenda. Under Council's meeting procedures, the committee or section chair introduces their committee reports or minutes and summarizes the matters considered and now brought forward to Council for today's ratification. We have Councillor Medeiros. For the minutes of the July 10th special meeting of the Planning Development Committee. Councillor Medeiros, you chaired this meeting. I will now pass the chair to you to lead council in consideration of these board minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, you have before you the minutes of the Special Planning and Development Service Committee of July 10th. Are there any questions or comments? No. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I have a motion from Councillor Medeiros, seconded by Councillor Fertini, to adopt the minutes and the recommendations. All those in favor? Motion carries. The next item, 11.2, was approved on consent.
So, Mr. Mayor, the next item of business would be 17.1, the referred matters list. If there's any questions, if not, council can move on to added item 17.2, added by Councillor Palashi.
Okay, item 17.2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I added this item, ROPA 32, future expansion of Northwest Brampton. The province recently announced that they are appealing the regional official plan 32, which involves the Northwest Brampton, the shale. So I guess I think members of council are certainly at the region, we voted unanimously on this ROPA. Here at the City of Brampton, I gave an overview. Prior to that regional council meeting, there were no issues at this time, so I think it's safe to say that all of members of council supported the regional official plan amendment. So I'm requesting that staff report back on the implications of the province's appeal on ROPA 32 and the ability to advance the secondary plan and implementation of the 2040 vision with respect to Heritage Heights. I'm not asking for staff to provide any comments right now. I'm just asking for a future report, and in also consideration with our interim control bylaw that was in place for the GTA West corridor. I'd like a better understanding of, Caledon doesn't have an ICBL. They have no layer of policy in their town that protects any part of the 413. Halton doesn't have an ICBL or a layer of policy that protects for the 413. Why specifically in Brampton have we I guess, essentially done some of the work for the province? I'd like a better understanding in that report as well. And I'm kind of being a little bit, just kind of trying to get ahead of the game with respect to, I know hopefully the province is going to be releasing their corridor alignment in the fall, although we've heard that before. And so hopefully I'm looking to combat that release and this report to come to council at that date, at that time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just, no motion needed, just direction.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if there is direction, it needs to be in the form of a motion as per the procedure bylaw. If the request is for staff to report back, unless staff acknowledge then a motion's not required.
I think it's fair to understand the scope of this appeal, what it means, to get a staff report on that. I don't think anyone would object to that. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Okay, Councillor Willens. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay. That takes us to number 18. There's no procurement matters. 19, public question period. This is where we invite members of the public to come forward to the podium and ask any questions about any decision made by council at today's meeting. There's a 15-minute limit to these questions. Do we have any questions? Seeing none today. Bylaws. We're now at the portion of the meeting dealing with adoption of city bylaws. To give effect to council decisions made at this meeting and previous meetings, I have a motion from Councillor Paleshi, seconded by Councillor Bowman, to approve the bylaws. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay. That takes us to closed session items. We have a motion from Councillor Bowman and Councillor Paleshi. The council proceed into closed session to discuss the following matters pertaining to the following: 21.1 minutes, 21.2 a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land, 21.3 a position, plan, and procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried out or to be carried on the behalf of the municipality or local board, 21.4 a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on behalf of the municipality, 21.5 personal matters about an identifiable individual, 21.6 a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be copied to any applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on behalf of the municipality or local board. So all those in favor of going into closed session? Oh, question, Councillor Singh. Yes, I was going to suggest that we take a half an hour break for lunch and then go into closed session.
Yeah, so 12:45.
So the time right now is 12:08, so we'll meet at 12:45 for the closed session meeting. And it'll be on the 4th floor. Sorry?
Videos after lunch.
Oh, so the videos, let's have, do you want to do the video after? Okay. All in favor of this motion? Motion carries. Transparency and open government, I will report in the public session any outcomes of today's closed session business. As a result of our closed session today, I wish to report the minutes were acknowledged by council. 21.1. 21.2, the item was considered in closed session and direction was given to staff. 21.3 was removed from the agenda. 21.4, the item was considered in closed and direction was given to staff. Any additional wording for that? No?
It's not up on the board. That's 21.4. The direction only was given to staff.
Okay. Yep. 21.5, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board or employees, and an identifiable individual, and there'll be a motion for this?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Direction was given to staff on that matter, as well as a public motion, which I will put on the screen right now.
Moved by Councillor Bowman and Paleshi that a CL recruitment committee be established to immediately commence the CL recruitment process comprised of all members of council. All those in favor of the motion? Motion carries.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, the last item was the added item 21.6, and direction was given that a motion be considered in public session, and the motion is on the screen.
Okay. A position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on behalf of the municipality or local board, and proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. This is being moved by Councillor Dillon, seconded by Councillor Paleshi. The staff be directed to begin the procurement of a cricket facility through a competitive process in accordance with the purchasing bylaw with the following specifications: completed and ready for occupancy and use no later than June 30th, 2020. Was it Was it April? April. Okay, but with the goal of April. Okay. Yeah. That the facility is capable of hosting international sanctioned cricket tournaments. Such other specifications as the Commissioner of Community Services deems necessary and appropriate to accommodate community uses in the facility, all subject to council budget approval. Specific to Gore Meadows. All those in favor of the motion? Motion, sorry? Okay. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay. The next item of business is item 22, confirming bylaw. I have a motion.
Mr. Mayor, before we get to that item, council stood down item 9.1, which was the Algoma University Phase 2 public report. We'll have to consider that.
Okay, so that was moved by Councillor Willen, seconded by Councillor Paleshi. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay. Now we're on to confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Singh, seconded by Councillor Paleshi, that the following bylaw before council at its regular meeting of August 7, 2019 be given the required number of readings, taken as read and signed by the mayor and city clerk and corporate seal affixed there. 2, to confirm the proceedings of the regular council meeting held on August 7th. All those in favor? Motion carries. The next item is adjournment, and I would note that thank you for your respectful consideration. In the middle of the summer, our next meeting is September 11th and September 25th. I have a motion from Councillor Singh and Councillor Bowman to adjourn. All those in favor? Motion carries.
We just vote.